something new today. We're going Instagram Live and Facebook Live and
Oh,
YouTube
nice.
Live.
Very nice.
So let's not fuck this up.
We'll do our best.
Thank you, man. And we, I don't know if Kirill said it, but thank you very much for doing this on short notice.
Dude, of course. I don't know if you heard my vertigo. I'm spinning right now, so if I throw up on the camera, that's why.
It'll go viral. That's all. That's a good thing.
That's what we're looking for here. Let's get some views.
Yeah, imagine. Like, all right, he's dying. It's perfect.
Sick.
All right,
So are we good? We're live?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's go.
All right, you guys, welcome back to another Light It Up webinar. We are thrilled to have with us here our sponsor at EXP, Colton Whitney, coming from Orange County, California. Colton is the team leader of the McLure Group. He runs a highly successful real estate team out of, again, Orange County, California. Has been a huge mentor to us. We've had him on the podcast. That episode was great. If you guys want to go back and check that one out. Today, we thought we'd have him speak a little bit more about how to work with buyers in this current market. We know that, it's certainly a challenge. It's a unique market, and a lot of people out there are struggling. So just a couple tips and tricks on how we can, improve the way that we work with buyers in this market. So Colton, we'll let you take it from there, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a slide that Tom Ferry recently released, and it's one that I think agents have to take very seriously. And it is like, one, there's agents right now who are absolutely thriving, and there's agents who are growing their businesses. And then there's agents who are terrified if they're even going to be able to make it through the next couple of months. There was a slide that showed back in 2012, there was 4.5 million real estate transactions. For 2023, they're expecting 4.5 million real estate transactions. So the exact same as 2012. The huge, vast difference that agents need to pay attention to is back then, it was 900 and called a million. It was like 990,000 real estate agents. Today, there's 1.6 million people fighting over the exact same transactions as we did back in 2012. And it's like, you guys have heard me talk about it before. The Vanna White realtors of the world, the people who show up with their black and white MLS sheet, they're fumbling to the door at the same exact time as their client, the very first time that they've shown it. They didn't show up prepared. They didn't do anything to build rapport. They stumble into the house trying to kick on the lights the same time as the client. And they're like, okay, here's the kitchen. Here's the bathroom. Look at this beautiful view. And it's like, they don't need you for that. The Vanna White realtors, I am 100% confident, are going to be removed from the industry. But the agents who take this entire process from lead acquisition to objection handling to nurturing to identifying pain points and making sure you can articulate the solutions to those pain points while you're on the phone with people, like magnetizing yourself to a lead before they ever see you, before they ever meet you. What are you doing to create powerful moments that can go, wow, John knows what he's talking about? Like, this is something that we have to be so insanely intentional about, because the good news is our competition, they're not that smart. The barrier to entry to get into real estate, they're not that intentional. And from the lead acquisition to the objection handling to the nurturing to the pre-appointment and how you show up, what you prepare for, with the pre-coffee text, which we can go into, what the conversations that you're having when you meet them at the door, how you facilitate the showing of the property to make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunity to create a powerful moment. And most agents are just going in touring a property, and at the end they go, hey, let me know if you guys have any questions, or they say, what do you think? And the client's like, yeah, we liked it, but we're gonna go home and we're gonna talk. And then they disappear, and then the agents have the audacity to be like, these leads are crap. These clients are all tire kickers. No, and it's the reality of it is, dating is a lot like real estate. You go on a first date and somebody doesn't get back to you. Okay, maybe it's you, maybe it's them. We don't know. But if you go on 20 dates and nobody's calling you back after that for a second date, you can guarantee it has something to do with what you're doing, saying, presenting on that date. And it's like, we have 100%. To be able to look in the mirror and reflect back and find out, what am I doing in the process that isn't working? Because if we can focus, like you guys know, I'm obsessed with conversion, and I'm obsessed with the tiny little micro adjustments that you make from beginning all the way to end, because those tiny little micro adjustments feed the KPIs that feed the end of year conversion. And it's like we discount the value of these tiny little micro adjustments because we don't immediately see the results from them. But it's like being on a treadmill for 30 minutes and you jump in, jump off, you look in the mirror and you go, oh shit, I didn't lose any weight. And it's like, well, of course you did.
Struggle every day.
If you continue to do this each and every day, all of a sudden 6 months down the road, you look in the mirror and you're like, wow, this is working. So it's like if you can stay consistently focused on the tiny little micro improvements of your process, that's going to increase the appointment rate, the show up rate, the secondary appointment rate, the submitting offers rate. That all feeds the end of your pipeline. And it's like, if you can increase your conversion by just 0.2%, you'll make an extra 25% in commissions. And most people just aren't being intentional enough with the steps that are going to help feed that bigger conversion at the end of the year.
Yeah. I also think it's due to a false sense of reality. Because like in the last 2 years, you'd get calls or signed calls on a listing. Somebody would walk in and eventually someone's going to make an offer because everybody qualified for a loan at that time, right? Yeah. But then it's the agent that's able to actually convert it into a transaction by converting that client. And first and foremost, to even get to there's the amount of contacts you need to get with, interactions you need to have or attempts you need to make to actually convert that client, to give them, to talk to them on the phone, to book an appointment. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I know that that's changed drastically recently, since mid 2022.
Yeah, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we went from an average of, and this is everything, because keep in mind, you've got live transfers from lead sources like Zillow Flex and UpCity, but then you got PPC, there's all the different types, open house leads, all the leads that go into the CRM. It's collectively adding all of those up. And it went from 16 contact attempts to set an appointment up to 33 or 34, somewhere in there. So we went from 16 to we had to double the contact attempts to be able to set the very first appointment. And what we found is over 50% of our first successful contacts happens after the 7th failed contact attempt. And it's like most agents aren't following a process, or like we take non-reply, we take no response, we take somebody not being ready to talk to us yet as rejection. And the reality of it is, they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you, they have no reason to talk to you because you're not their friend. Like I don't like talking to a salesperson. I'm in the process of moving to Arizona. You should see me. I'm like my own worst client. I'm dodging these people on every corner. I see the salesman in the new home track. I'm dipping to the right as fast as I can. I'm not filling out any registration forms. Like I'm being the client because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to start getting bombarded. But it's because I'm in my due diligence phase. I'm not ready to pull the trigger on anything yet. I'm not ready to talk to a salesperson yet. I need to talk to somebody when I'm ready to go write that offer on that property because I'm an agent. I know what I'm doing. But there's one guy who is standing out from everyone else because he's not trying to sell me anything. He's been doing value-based deposits, not checking it. Hey, man, just wanted to check in and see how your home search is doing. Hey, brother, I know you're in the due diligence phase right now. Here's a bunch of information for Chandler, Scottsdale, Gilbert. Here's all the information for all the different areas and what you can expect, the pros and cons of each. I'm paying attention to that because holy shit, I'm panicking because I have no freaking idea where I want to go. I hate Arizona. I don't want to go to Arizona. My daughter's stepdad got a job offer there, so I'm going to be there part-time now with them. And but this guy is doing value-based deposits while everybody else, even successful realtors who I know, are doing the same bullshit. Hey man, how you doing? Want to check in and see how your home search is going. And it's like, that doesn't work. It doesn't work on me. It's not working on your clients. And we got to figure that shit out.
Yeah. No, that's a solid point. It's George Bryant actually came up with a statistic he shared on his Instagram the other day. He was saying 70% of the people that you get ahead of and you're able to offer a service or a product that relates to them while they're in that, due diligence phase, you'll end up converting and they'll be loyal to you in that time. So those little deposits give you a lot of credibility in their eyes too, which is so important.
What do you mean by get ahead of?
So before they're ready to make a decision in that moment.
Got it.
Yep. No, I agree. We have what's called the 4 S's of lead conversion. And it's of course speed to lead. That's self-explanatory. Nobody should need to be told what that is. And then equally as important, speed to response. So from the time that I first talked to John and I immediately respond to him. We have a great conversation, but then John sends me a property that he wants to go see. How quick am I to respond to that? John, we go take a look at a property. John says, hey, what are the value? One, you better have showed up with the damn comps. But if you're like most agents who don't, and you show up completely unprepared and you did absolutely no due diligence to be able to create a powerful moment that says, hey, this is a knowledgeable realtor. But let's pretend you didn't do any of that. And it's like speed to response. John requests information. How quickly are you continuously providing that information throughout the process? Because we all start on first date behavior. First date, first appointment, you show up with your suit and tie, you're on your best behavior. Second appointment, maybe you lost a tie. Third appointment, you're in a t-shirt. Fourth appointment, you show up in your G-shirt. And it's like, we just see the quality of service dramatically diminish. The response times start to diminish. And then we're shocked when all of a sudden a client will ghost us. And it's like, if we're not continuously showing up on first date behavior, that's inevitably going to be an outcome that affects our conversion. And then I think the third S is one of the most important, and it's speed to value. How quickly are you identifying pain points, and how articulate are you being into how you will explicitly explain how you are going to be the solution to that pain point? Because if you do a good enough job of magnetizing yourself to your clients, for example, in our market, inventory, literally everybody's Achilles heel right now because there is none. The houses suck. We're an overpriced market. Interest rates are terrible. Affordability is at one of its lowest points that we have ever had because incomes haven't risen. However, our cost of living and our cost of housing has skyrocketed. So affordability is shit. Yeah. It's like, what are you doing to solve to people's pain points? And today it's inventory. You better have a solution, a buyer concierge program that's going to identify off market, your ability to go after expireds. But it's like, if you're not telling the client about this service and how you're going to offer it to them, and that how without you, they're not going to have access to inventory that other agents will not have access to. And we'll have people who say, oh, I'm already working with an agent. Fantastic. If I were able to bring you one of my off-market properties from my network, is that something you'd be interested in taking a look at? They never say no. Yeah, they're loyal at first until you dangle the carrot. And then the minute that carrot gets dangled, they're ready to start going behind the other agent's back. And I know there's people like, that's unethical. Listen, if you're not doing a good enough job for your client, and if you're not identifying them opportunities that I can, it has nothing to do with being ethical or not being ethical. It has to do with you not doing your fiduciary, you're not doing what you are responsible to do for your client. And if they choose that they want to work with me instead of you because I'm doing a better job, I'm articulating value, I'm giving them strategy, they should use me. Speed to value, one of the most, and then the easiest one that we all screw up, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be the agent who's the smartest. It's not going to be the agent who's the most successful, who sells the most home, who does the most volume, that how many years of experience they have. It's the freaking person who just so happened to call close enough to the time that the client was ready to transact. That perfect home came up, and Kiro said, you know what, we've got this property. Talk to the spouse, and she goes, oh my God, this house is great. I just so happened to call you that day. It's like, hey, let's go take a look at that property. So the fourth rule is stay in flow with people. And it's like, it doesn't matter if they're not responding. Your one and only job is to stay in flow. And you have to make sure that you're constantly staying top of mind, because unfortunately, it's not the most skilled agent that wins. It's the person who just so happened to reach out to them at the right time.
Yeah. I think it's most, I mean, let's be honest, people get into this business because they think they can make quick money, right? I'm commonly referring to newer agents. And I think when they realize it's not happening quickly, a lot of times they'll give up on that lead, or they'll say that the lead's shit or whatever they'll say. But it's the person who is around, you know, who lasts the longest. Like we've said, like, you know, I always think back, like when you're calling for sale by owners, the first time the for sale by owner puts the sign in their yard, the first day they get a call from 10 different agents. The next day they get a call from 9 agents. By day 10, there's only 2 or 3 agents left that are still calling that person, right? So it's the same thing. You know, a lot of times agents think that no one else has these leads. Everybody has that same lead that you have. Everybody in other real estate offices. It's just who's going to be around, who's going to be adding the most value, who's going to be staying, you know, in constant communication, and who's going to be there when they're actually ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
It really is
dating.
What's that?
Sorry, it's really just the dating. It's almost like swiping on Tinder or Bumble so much, and then you finally get a match. You work on a conversation. Now they're setting up the date. So you've already busted your ass to get in front of them. Now getting in front of them and what you do to convert them is a big step. That's also there. So you could exhaust all your efforts learning how to do that first part of it. But if you don't know how to convert them when you're with them, then everything else goes to shit.
Yeah. And that's a part that I don't get. And we spend thousands of dollars We spend endless amounts of time, whether we're door knocking, we're doing open houses, we're nurturing leads from our pond. Like, we do all of this work. We're taking time away from our families, away from your kids, away from your going to the gym, away from going and visit mom, like away from your personal life so you can build this business, which we know is a difficult business. And then you show up half-assed looking like doing the Vanna White BS. And it's like from the that you start to the time, like the transaction, in our opinion and our rule at this office, is the transaction begins the day that you close escrow. That's the day the real transaction begins, because then when you do a great job, you provided a great service, they know you, they like you, they trust you. From that point on, so long as you do your job and you continue to stay in value. And by that, I don't mean sending your stupid fucking pie recipes. I don't mean by putting sports count. And if you do that, that's fine. If that's a top of mind touch you do, great. But if you think that's going to get somebody to be like, oh, you know what? Thank God for that freaking pie recipe that we got. Let's go ahead and call John. No, you stay in value. And it's like, what does that mean? There's layers to this shit. You can do, I love Client Giant. If you don't use Client Giant, you need to be doing something similar to it, because it sends them a really nice gift every single quarter. And the problem, like most people don't like it, is the client will receive the gift and they won't thank you for it. And people are like, oh, well, they must not like it. No, it's being received. The deposit is being made, but they're not going to sell that house for another probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So it's like those touches are being received, but then all of a sudden, 6 months down the road, their friend that's looking to buy a home, they remember because you're staying top of mind. Every single quarter, you can send them a CMA. And you can just send it to them, or you can just call to check in on them and say, hey, how are things going? Or you can say, hey, I wanted to keep you up to date on the sales, comparable sales in your neighborhood. I just went ahead and prepared a competitive market analysis for your home so you know what your equity is. And then you say, how you doing? Just so you know, that's in your inbox. Go ahead and take a look. If you have any questions, let me know. But how are things going with the house? How are things going with the kids? How's this? How's that? I know you were going through chemotherapy. How's everything going with your mom? Like, all the details that we should be doing a good job of building rapport, the details that you're constant, and then put it into your CRM. And when you follow up with them in the future, be personal, use those details. And it's like that's when that one singular transaction, that however much you paid for that closing, whether it was a lead that you paid for, it was an open house through sweat equity, it's like that one closing will compound into 10, 12, 13 over your entire career if you do your job the right way. But we treat it like it's a damn McDonald's, let people walk in the door, take their order, hand them their food, and then we never talk to them again. And that's not the way that we should do this business.
Yeah. And to touch because that's a very, very, very valuable point, trying to create relationships, but also to try to gain the client's trust. So like, for instance, let's say, I'm prospecting you on the 33rd touch, you finally give me an appointment. And the reason why you gave me an appointment is because I asked you, hey, are you looking at only on-market property or also off-market property? Then I got your interest. Now I'm prospecting for inventory off-market, and I'm able to connect the dots. You're like, you know what? We'll see at 123 Main Street. It's off-market, it's exclusive. Now I have you in the house. Yeah. The odds of them buying that one specific property is probably not in the favor of them doing so. So how do I gain their trust on that first time appointment?
So this, I'll never forget. And I use this example. And you just said another thing that I want to write down. Damn it. What was it? Oh, the off markets. I'll make sure I write it down so I don't forget. We go and we walk into a property and we're like, and you try to sell it. And it's like, if I'm going to try to build trust, stop trying to sell them, start trying to protect them. And that really is going to be one of the most valuable things you can do. And I'm not telling you to go shit on every single house that you see. However, when you get to that property and you meet them for the very first time, and this is something that you will continue to do on every single showing, is you want to point out the benefits and the positive attributes that would make this home appealing. More importantly, we want to try to identify by calling the listing agent up front, hey, aside from what's visible to the naked eye, like, was the plumbing redone? Is there a new roof? Like, what are the things that we can't see that, of course, increase the value of this property and make it less likely something that's going to have deferred maintenance or whatever it may be? And it's like, call those things out. But I want you to spend an equal amount of time when you get there. Hey, John, while you guys are going ahead and taking a look around at the property, I'm going to be walking around. I'll be within earshot to distance in case you have any questions. But I'll be taking note of things that we might need to bring to the inspector's attention in the event that this is the home for you. And then you walk around and you look for the roof with the 3 layers of shingles on it that shows that the underlayment has deferred maintenance and potentially needs replacement. You go out and call the old and busted AC unit, the old and busted furnace, the dry rot, the potential mold, the electrical frayed wires, like whatever it is, or the huge crack in the foundation. When clients see you starting to point that stuff out and not trying to talk them into a house, they're going to want to work with you. That is how you'll start magnetizing yourself to people, because they will start to trust what you are doing. I was showing a property once at the same time as somebody else. I got a call 3 months later. Those clients were there. I was there. I guess, and it's funny because I never do this. I put my card on the table because I think the agent specifically requested it. The clients who were in that property showing it with their agent grabbed my card off of the table. And I didn't know this at the time. I got a call like 3 months later, and they say, hey, you don't know who we are, but you were showing a property over in Tustin, and you called out a crack in the foundation to your clients. And when they asked you, is this something to be concerning? You specifically told them, yes, this area is known for these type of issues. There's a local company that does most of the foundation work for us here. It's called Sabre. We can have them out. They actually just recently did a survey for us on an adjacent property. I can have them out here real quick to let us know if this is something that is an issue or something that we don't need to be concerned about. Apparently they asked their agent. He's like, yeah, that's normal. That's typical settling. It wasn't typical settling, dude. You could put your pinky through this crack in the foundation. So they heard their agent's answer. They heard my answer. They saw us put our card on the counter. They took the card, and then I sold them the house, because he was like, we appreciated that you weren't trying to sell your clients on something that they should have been concerned about. And I think we try to do the opposite of what we should. And we're trying to sell, and we're trying to be salesy. And it's like, I don't think salesy works. I don't think salesy keeps you clients. I don't think salesy gives you referrals in the future.
Yeah.
He's a great salesman, but I think it's not going to be good for your repeat business.
No, it's true. It's true.
That's a good point.
And even in a competitive market like this, where you're going to have to waive inspections, you're going to have to waive, appraisals and contingencies and all that stuff, doesn't mean it doesn't. And I don't want anybody to twist what Colton's saying. It doesn't say, he's not saying, let's ask for a credit for this, or, this is a problem, and let's ask the seller for a concession or something like that. It's, hey, these are some things that may be issues down the road. Not necessarily that the seller is going to cover for it, but I'm going to bring these issues to your attention because we're here. We can all see them. I want to walk through them together. So, you guys know what you're getting into, right?
And what you just hit on, and yeah, because it especially in this market, like, we know things that are reasonable. We're going to get back to the days where a seller will be like, hey, if you're not willing to accept this mold, the next buyer will. And it's like, things that would be acceptable in the normal market. Now you just kind of got to deal with those things. Our inventory levels are getting to one of the lowest points that we've ever been at. So it's like making sure, because you got to plant the seed, because the worst thing we can possibly do is for the very, talk about all this stuff. Yes, we do bring it to their attention, and you have to be very careful with your tone. You can't sound the alarm if there's no reason to. Again, right. I'm going to be note of things that we might need to bring to the inspector's attention. This may be an issue, it may not, but it's certainly going to be something that we want a roofer to come evaluate. It's something that we want a foundation expert to come evaluate, just to see if this is potentially going to be something that is a big ticket item for you to replace after close of escrow, or if it's something that we don't got to worry about. Like, a lot of agents will use this initial tone that creates panic, and that's not what we want to do either.
Yeah.
But what you talked on is, like, so many agents don't really talk about the market. They don't really talk about what's expected. They don't really set expectations, set the stage of what to expect. And then all of a sudden you do your request for repair, and you get your inspection report. You've done nothing to prepare them for what automatically is going to be on it. You told the clients, hey, you don't got to be at the inspection. We'll go ahead. The inspector will just send us a report. And that is the dumbest thing you can do, because my favorite thing, and I tell all our agents, you have to make sure your client is there for the summary, period. Why? Yep. Because half that shit looks so scary to your clients. It looked scary to us the very first time we saw an inspection report. But then you realize what's typical of a home built within that period. The things that are standardly going to be on that inspection report, and nobody will be able to diffuse or release that fear faster than the inspector who put it on the report. So it's like when they come in, but when you do the summary, hey, is there anything on here that would prevent you from buying this home? Is there anything on here that would make you tell your family member, hey, this home is a piece of crap? And most of the time, like, no, the house is great. There's a couple things here and there, but that's typical of a home built within this age. And that client's fear goes from this to this. And then we can go back and look at the report. And instead of for the very first time, than being like, oh my God, there's not an anti-tip device on the stove and they've got a picture of a baby being squashed. Yeah. It's horrible.
It's important too for people, you know, in the conversation of home inspections, use your preferred inspector. If your team doesn't have a preferred inspector, I mean, they should. Or if you're an individual agent, figure out from the other agents in your office or other agents in your market who a great home inspector is, right? And I'm not saying a home inspector who sort of just goes through the house quickly and gets the job done. I'm saying somebody who does a thorough job but doesn't scare the first-time buyers, right? Because there's home inspectors that will go in there and be like, oh my gosh, would you look at this? Like, come down here and get on their hands and knees and they're crawling around and making a big deal out of small things. So, use a great local inspector, push for your clients to use your preferred person, maybe give them 2 or 3 options, right, of great local preferred inspectors. And then I always tell our agents, make sure, like you said, you refer to it as the summary. At the end of the inspection, you need to walk up to that inspector and say, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Inspector. I haven't seen too many female inspectors, I'll say that. But all right, Inspector, any big things here that we should be concerned about? So they can hear it right from his mouth, so that the next day when they get that 25-page report, they're not like, oh, well, these things are some major items here, right? They heard it right from the inspector. That's usually not some major things there.
Makes your job so much easier when you're, and by the way, you shouldn't be the one telling them that this and this and that is not a concern. Most of us are not the expert. We don't have any electrical experience. We don't have any roofing experience. We don't have any plumbing experience. So stop advising your client on shit that you have absolutely no expertise on, and allow the person there that they trust, that they know is not trying to get a sale, allow that person to do your job for you, because they're going to do it 10 times more effectively than you will. But there's so many agents who don't want to sit there, or they don't want to go sit through the inspection, and I don't. It's like, even now, I never do now, but even back when I was in production, it's like I always showed up at the very tail end, the last 15, 20 minutes. And I would sit there for the summary, because I knew the likelihood of that deal and that negotiation and that inspection conversation would go far more successfully if I allowed that person to do the heavy lifting for me.
Yeah. And I think it's
managing expectations is the biggest thing overall. Like the summary is important, but going in there, because at the summary, it's like almost damage control. And it's like you're almost making an excuse for like, oh, well, these aren't really big things. But going in there in the beginning and basically saying, hey, listen, like for us in the state of New Jersey, we're the only state in the nation that we know of that inspector actually needs to be licensed. So their job is to remove all liability, because if they lose their license, they lose their livelihood. So what are they going to do? That 25-page report is going to have every single thing that could potentially be wrong with the house, and it's going to have recommendations of what to do. For example, seek professional advice, or need some maintenance, or request for change. They're doing that because of a liability issue on their side. But you have to remember, if it's visible to the eye, you already understand what you're getting yourself into. If it's hidden, then that's cause for concerns if it's major. But managing those expectations before you go in there, they can literally just cross off a bunch of it, and they have a filter going into that inspection versus aftermath.
And what's already on there. Like, we know on any home that's built in the 1950s, we know asbestos is going to come up. So I'm going to make sure that we bring up the issue with asbestos. We know that if it's not obstructed and it's not disturbed, that asbestos, the seller's not going to go in and remove non-disturbed asbestos. That's not a concern. That's not something that a seller is reasonably going to do. When you have GFCI, it's not going to have GFCI, especially if they've never retrofitted anything, because at the time that this home was built, that wasn't something that was required for that day's building standards. It's not a seller's job to go retrofit that entire property and bring it to today's standards. And it's like, when you do a really good job of telling them, hey, this is going to be on the report, that's going to be on the report, that's going to be on the report. Dry rot and termite is a guarantee here in California. You're going to find termite. Most of the time, the seller will typically pay for it. However, we're getting into a market now where they're giving you limited allowances. And it's like, as long as you're explaining all of this throughout the process and preparing them so that when it's received, the client's not having, like, at any given moment in time, if your client appears shocked, panicked, or freaked out, it's because you did a really bad job setting the expectations.
Exactly.
And it's like, for the first time, you're telling your client after they're like, we want all this fixed. It's the very first time that you're telling them, like, hey, the seller is going to look at things that are truly a safety concern, things that are mechanically or structurally wrong with this property, like the AC unit not working, is a reasonable request for repair. A roof that is way clearly overdue for replacement Is it leaking? Is it not? You got to set the expectations of what a seller is going to do and what they won't do. Like, set those expectations up front and your job will be 1,000 times easier.
Yeah, because if you don't do that, like, they're going to get out of hand and they're going to ask for a lot of things. And they should, because they don't do this every day and they don't know that they can't. And, their father or their mother's in their ear telling them, when I bought my house 47 years ago, we got a $50,000 price reduction because the house was in shambles. Well, that doesn't happen these days. So it's our job to make sure that they understand that going into it. So we always tell people, I always tell these people, when you're getting out of the car and you're walking up to the house for the home inspection, and maybe you could even do it the day before or the night before, as you're walking up that driveway to the house to meet the home inspector, you're saying, now listen, this guy is going to give us a 100-page report. He's going to rip the thing apart. He's going to find termites. He's going to find this. He's going to find this. We're looking for major catastrophic issues, structural, mechanical, environmental, things that you can't live with and that may concern you. But they're, the little outlet that doesn't work or the burner on the stove, we might have to get comfortable knowing that we're buying a house where, some of those things are not going to be fixed, so that when they do get that report back, it's not the first time.
And the best, like, my favorite thing, the takeaway, and it really is the way to kind of just remove, because you got to be careful too, because when you get too combative and it seems like all you're trying to do is talk them into it. I tell my clients all the time, hey guys, I'm not telling you that your concerns are not justified. However, my concern is that you're going to because you see it all the time. They're canceling over shit that they are inevitably going to it's going to continuously occur on this property, on the next property, on the next property. It's like, John, I understand that this is concern, and I'm not telling you that it's not a justifiable one. Your concerns are valid, regardless of what the seller feels about it. However, if the asbestos and if the electrical and the no GFCIs and the things that are typical of a home built within this period, we need to go look at homes that it's going to be expected are going to have these things already complete. They're already going to be retrofitted. And it's like when you do the take, because here we have a ton of homes built, you guys do too. We have a ton of homes built in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and there isn't a newer home available in the area that they're looking at. So when you just tell them, it's like, hey, let's go, we can cancel this one, because if you're not comfortable moving forward, we're good with that. But we're going to need to go look at something much newer. Let's go take a look at that type of inventory. And before we make any decisions, let's see what's going to be available. Then you show them and they see there's no, it's like, hey guys, this is what's typical here. This is what's going to be expected. So increase your budget, change your locations that you're considering, or have realistic expectations of what you're going to yield in this negotiation.
Just eliminate the element of surprise, right? Like a quick scenario
by managing
by managing expectations, right? Like when we take a new listing and our seller's listing home goes on the market, we'll tell them, I know this is obviously about buyers, but we'll tell them literally, I'm like, all right, here's what's going to go wrong. Agents that are supposed to be there at 4 p.m. are going to show up at 5 o'clock. Agents that are supposed to be there at 4 p.m. are going to show up at 3 o'clock. Agents are going to forget to put the keys back in the lockbox. Agents are going to leave your lights on. They're going to leave your closet doors open. They're going to leave. They may even forget to lock your door. I apologize in advance, but this is all the shit that's going to go wrong when we put your home on the market. So that the next week, the next day, when somebody forgets to lock the back door or forgets to turn the alarm off or on or whatever, they're not surprised, right? They're like, oh shit, John told us this was going to happen. So it's just making sure that the surprises are at a minimum.
You're saving yourself so much headache by doing that.
So
and when the transaction turns emotional, that's when you mismanage the expectations, because then they feel like the seller pulled a fast one on them and they're not thinking about it logically because you didn't prep them for it. The same thing is true on the sellers. So like John was saying, when a seller is about to go through the inspection, right? They're like, well, I bought the house just like this. And they're like, oh, bidding war, everybody wants my new thing because I'm the new hot girl on the block. That's their mindset. But when you ask them, like, hey, listen, to the inspector scheduled for tomorrow. Do me a favor. What time do you get home? 5? Okay, perfect. So like right around 6, you and Debbie do a walkthrough of the property in the eyes of an inspector. Everything that you think that could potentially be picked on, just make a note of it. Just know what you could potentially fix, so that way you're approaching it and we can do some damage control if we need to. And inevitably, you'll get some people who either want to delay the inspection, or some people who are going in there knowing like, yeah, they're going to ask for a bunch of shit because the house is falling apart. But then it's like changing perspective before it's requested, and it's like calling someone's child ugly at that point. Now it's too late. Now it's emotional instead of logical, right?
100%.
All right, let's jump into it, Colton, because I know you got a lot of good things up your sleeve. Well, you're not wearing sleeves today because you got those guns. But so one of your agents, they set the appointment. They're going out with a client to see some homes. Let's say tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Talk to us. I know you guys have some good tips and stuff on calendar invites, coffee, all all those details.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to take it one step back and then work into it. I think what we've talked, we're on the point of expectations. It's like, we need to make sure our clients have expectations, but we also need to make sure we do. And it's like, I use this stupid analogy and I have no idea why. Don't know anything about airplanes. I love them, but I've never flown a plane. Don't know shit about them. But for whatever reason, I know a 747 takes 10,700 feet for a fully loaded 747 with passengers and fuel to get liftoff. And it's like, when we're talking about leads and we're talking about conversion, it has nothing. And then I hear agents like, well, I'm not an online lead converter. Yeah, but you do generate leads, whether that's through open houses, that's through networking, that's through referrals. And you need to have expectations of those leads, because when we don't have proper expectations, we panic, we get discouraged, we stop doing the activities that we know are going to generate the result. It's like a 747 pilot knows that it takes 10,700 feet. So after 5,000 feet, the pilot doesn't panic. They just keep on the current trajectory that they're on, keep the throttles down. They don't pull up. They keep doing what they're doing. They're doing the activities that they know after enough time, they're finally going to take flight. But if they didn't know, and you had no idea how many feet that plane needed, you might panic if it doesn't take off at 5,000 feet. You might all of a sudden pull off the throttles, because you have to have the expectations. And imagine if you're on an airplane and you taxi onto the runway, they pin it the way that we all know they do, and then inevitably it takes off. If halfway through that runway, they pulled off the throttles, you immediately would panic. And then all of a sudden they floored it again. You would panic. Why? Because you know they're not doing the activity that's going to get that fucker into the air. And if they don't do it quickly, it's going to crash and burn with you in it. Real estate and lead conversion is the exact same shit. We'll start doing the lead conversion. We start prospecting. We start cold calling, but we're not getting the results. So then all of a sudden we stop doing the activities and we're like, uh-oh, out of money. Better start prospecting and do it again. Then we get disappointed and we're like, eh. And it's like, we're surprised that so many agents crash and burn, but it's because they literally get on the runway. They don't have expectations of how long leads take to transact, the percentage of leads that should be transacting. And it's like, especially when it comes to online leads, the best in the world strike out 85% of the time. It's like the best lead converters in the entire world will only get 15% conversions on the best lead sources. You talk about PPC and the lower converting type of lead sources, you're going to get those best converters in the world to strike out 97% at least. And it's like, you'll see an agent complain that, well, I only have like 2 or 3 out of those 100 leads that are even serious. The rest of them, yes, we know the conversion on those is expected to be about 3% if you're the best. If you're average, you're only going to get about 1%. So it's like, having the expectations gives you the ability to know, am I getting the results that I should? And if I'm not, have I had enough time? Because like Zillow leads on average take about 77 days to transact. PPC leads have an average life cycle of 777 days, which is why everybody starts PPC, stops PPC, starts PPC, stops PPC, because you don't have the proper expectations. So having those expectations, so incredibly important for all of your lead sources. Like your first day that you get a lead, it's got on average going to take a consumer 9 days to choose the agent that they're going to, it's going to take them 9 days to choose the agent that they're going to work with. So when you get that lead, it makes a shit ton of sense for you to make sure that we have a plan that for 12 days, we're going to make sure that we're in constant flow with them every single day. And the agents who do that yield those early on conversions, because about half your conversions will happen in months 1 to 6, but another like 47% of your conversions will happen 6 months and after. So it's like, it's your job to make sure that you're scooping up and capturing as many of those leads as possible right out of the gate, the ones that are going to convert within 77 days. But in order to do that, you got to make sure that you're staying in flow with people during the time frame that's expected for them to choose the agents that they're going to work with. So we also have to have the right expectations of the leads and the sources that we use. But then you do this, you do the follow-up, you do the objection handling, and then you show up with your black and white MLS sheet, and we are shocked when nobody wants to have a second date with us. So to get into your part of it, of the, like, there's steps and micro adjustments. We are huge on the KPIs that lead to a good conversion rate. Conversations to appointments set to appointments met to a secondary showing. That is by far the most important. Which one of you two is getting more clients after the first appointment to show up for a second appointment? Because guess what? Of course, me. Yeah. If John's at 3% and Kiro's on 45, who's showing up and having first date behavior and doing a damn good job, asking great questions, listening more than he's talking, like making it about that person instead of making it about you and how great you are and what a badass realtor you are. It's like, I can promise you, if I go watch your process versus John's process, if you're getting like 45% of your people talking about himself, doing nothing to add value, and I can promise you, you're making it about them. You're not skipping rapport building. You're asking great questions, and I'll explain what that actually means. You're identifying pain point. And it's like, you will have a way higher rate. So we got to feed each of those KPIs to make sure that they're going to continuously feed the funnel that's going to give you a bigger conversion. And it's like, that starts from, great, I'll meet you tomorrow at 3. And then you don't send a pre-appointment confirmation text. You don't put the calendar invite. It's like a calendar invite for every 100 people that you set an appointment with. A calendar will get 12%, 12 extra people out of 100 to show up face-to-face, because people forget that they had an appointment with you. My person that cuts my hair, the only reason I use him, and he doesn't even do a good job, is because he sends me a calendar invite. My other guy doesn't. So I was always missing my haircut. So I'd rather take a shit haircut that I'm not going to miss than have the raggedy haircut that I'm constantly going to miss because he doesn't do a calendar invite. So don't skip that step. It will get more people to show up. And I know both of you, if you get an extra 12 people face-to-face with you, are you going to close more deals? Of course you will.
And it's a commitment too, right? Like, you know, it's obviously the reminder that it's on your calendar, but it's like, oh, okay, this guy, it already shows the buyer that you're serious, right? Yeah. You're serious. You take this professionally. You know, you take your job seriously. You're gonna act like a professional. I mean, obviously, a calendar invite might even say like which property you're meeting at. Of course, if you're seeing a few, you might list the other ones in the notes. It just keeps everybody organized, right?
Have a link to a Google Drive with the comps already prepared and done into it. But Colton, that would mean I have to take like an extra 10 minutes and put together a report. We know how many hours are you going to spend? How many dollars are you going to spend before we figure out? And guys, everything that I'm saying dipshit realtors do, I was the dipshit realtor doing all this stuff and realizing that my way didn't work. And it's like, that's when we became crazy intentional about figuring out a standard operating procedure that's going to give us a predictable outcome. So making sure you go above and beyond, because if all of a sudden John sends me the comps proactively and people are like, don't send the comps because they might be scared of them. No, they're not. They have the ability to look at Zillow.
They're looking at the same damn comps. Yeah.
They're already looking. That is such a bullshit excuse for that agent. Say, I don't give it to them until I meet him there because I don't. Shut up. Do more for them. Provide more value. Stand out from your competition, because I promise nobody else is doing it. And we use what's called a high note. And it's got the comps. It's got the schools. It's got the macro Orange County data. It's got the local neighborhood data. It's got my reviews. It's got about me's. It's got our company, because every personality type is different. And my high note allows me to see, okay, John's looking at the comps. Kiro's looking at my reviews. And it's telling me what's important to them. Like if I see he clicked into that comp page 45 times, I'm going to show up making sure damn well that I know every single comp in there, so that when he asks about it, I can then articulate a response that's going to make me sound like a knowledgeable realtor. But you're going to just show up and not do it. And it's so stupid. Do what you can to make sure that you're going to stand out, because you are there for an audition. And 99% of realtors are showing up drunk and disorderly, completely unprepared, being like, here's the kitchen. And it's just stupid. Take an extra 12 minutes to be prepared and actually be able to impress them. So then we do a coffee invite text. And this is something that literally it's pulling teeth to get my team to do it. But now, after years of me yelling and screaming and doing everything that I can do to get them to understand the importance, rapport building is by far the most important step for you to do before you jump into presentation mode, period. But everybody shows up at the same time as the client, fumbles around trying to find the lockbox, proving that you've never been there before. And you're like, oh shit, is it on the gas meter? Oh no, it's on the other side. And it's like, if you're doing that, you need to check yourself and you need to stop. And it's like, you need to make sure that when you get there, you're creating an environment that's going to allow you to build rapport in an organic way. So what we do every single time is, hey, John, I got into the area a little bit early. You're going to send this 30 minutes early, which means you might have to make sure you show up 15 minutes early. Well, I can't do it every single time because I'm busy and I'm back to back. Schedule yourself out better then. Have better time management. And I'd rather you take less appointments and follow the right process, because you're going to convert more, period. So send the coffee invite.
I tell our agents, even put on the calendar driving. Like,
yes,
if your appointment's at 4, you should have a calendar on, a block on your calendar for driving, like getting to the appointment.
And being early, because we live in an area where there's so much traffic. One day it'll take me 20 minutes. The next day it could take me 45. If you're late for me, my pet peeve when I interview agents, if they show up late, the interview's over. I do not tolerate people being tardy. It's rude. It's disrespectful to your time. My best friend in the world is late to everything, and I get so damn mad at him because it's disrespectful to people's time. So if I'm your client and you show up late, bye. So I would do everything possible to make sure I'm not upsetting somebody. I would do everything possible to make sure that I'm early. And you say, hey, got into the area a little bit early. I'm going to stop and grab us a coffee. What can I get you? And the thing is, like, you'll have, people will screw this up and they'll say, hey, I'm going to stop and get us a coffee. Can I get you something? And naturally, because people are polite, they don't know you, they don't want you to spend money on them. Like, oh, no, it's okay. Thank you so much. One, the deposit is still received. Even if you did it the wrong way, that deposit has been received. The gesture has been made, and they are going to appreciate it. But when you do it the way I told you, what can I get you? You will have a substantial amount of people say yes. And then you're going to show up with their triple macchiato vanilla skinny latte. And you're going to, I don't know if that's a drink. And you show up and it's like, now they're there, they're disarmed, they're appreciative. The laws of reciprocity, people are very equity sensitive. When you do something for me, I want to do something for you. When you do something nice to me, I want to be nice to you. And I'll prove it. Christmas, that unexpected random ass person got you a gift and you're like, fuck, I got to go get that person a gift now. Because that's the way human psychology works. It's the laws of reciprocity. So create that at your very first appointment with your client. And then you're going to talk to them. I'm going to hand you your triple shot vanilla, whatever it is. And then we're going to talk. I'm going to look at your license plate cover. Are you a 49ers fan? Are you a Yankees fan? Are you a UCLA alumni? Whatever you are, I'm going to start looking for little cues that I can organically weave into the conversation that's going to create rapport, that's going to show that we have a connection point, that shows that we have similar interests because we like working with people who are just like us. And when you do this part and you just hand over that coffee, it creates the environment that's going to build rapport. And rapport building is by far going to be the most effective way for you to secure that secondary appointment. And then you can go into your presentation of how you show the property, what you do, what you say, how you're going to secure the second appointment on the very first appointment, which is the only goal. I'll shut up and see if you have any questions or anything that you guys want to add on that.
I'm just thinking, anytime you walk into like a high-end car dealership or like a high-end boutique or retailer, right? What do? What's the first thing they do? Hand you a bottle of water, right?
They don't even ask.
Can I get you a bottle of water or some coffee? Or a lot of times they'll just hand it right to you. Right? Yeah. Law of reciprocity.
You think they're doing that for fun or because they know the psychology of their consumer and they know it's disarming and it's going to create a connection and a rapport building point? We all fall victim to it. Period. Yeah. And it's a good thing. No, it's not a bad thing. Don't do nice shit for people. It's a good thing.
I got my eye on the time here, and I want to make sure we stay within our parameters. Talk to us about how important it is to make sure you set that second appointment. Because anybody can go out there and go for the first time and open the door and do the Vanna White, as you said. Anybody could do that, right?
Yeah. It's a first date. Show up prepared. Be dressed the right way. Say the right things, make it about them, talk about them. Don't ever, unless they ask, it's like, oh, I have kids. Unless they ask you about your kids, shut up. Continue making it about them and dive deeper. Talk about their kids. Where do they go to school? Where did you come from? We came from Jersey. Oh my God, what had you in Jersey? How long were you there? What did you do for work? What brings you here to Orange County? It's like, we're going to continuously just make it about them and peel those onions back, because then we're going to continue to build rapport throughout the appointment. But setting that second appointment on the first appointment is a make or break on conversion. But you're going to do it by having a process that's going to funnel somebody to that second appointment. And it's like, when we get there, we tell them, hey, I'm not a helicopter parent. Go ahead and take a look around the property. While you're taking a look around, I'm going to be taking note of things that we might need to bring to the inspector's attention. I'll be within an earshot's distance. So if you have any questions, of course, I'm here. But when we're done, go ahead and meet me back in the kitchen and we'll discuss everything that you loved and hated about the home. And then you're going to meet them. And you'll see, when you set the stage for what this is going to look like and you took control of the showing, that is going to be how you get them into that. And they're not going to rush out the door the minute that they're done. they'll be in the kitchen and they'll meet you. And it's like, hey guys, on a scale 1 to 10, how close is this home to what you're looking for? Not did you like it? Because people are going to be nice. They think you're going to be offended. And I always make sure to break the ice with, hey, I didn't build this. I don't own it. I'm not going to be offended if you hate it. The more honest
we said the same thing.
Give me the ability to better identify the perfect property to you in the future. So on a scale 1 to 10, how close is it to what they're looking for? It's like a 6 or it's a 5. Got it. What would it take to make it a 10? And we're not going to, and the reason we're finding that out is because you understand that over 50% of your conversion is going to happen, 47%. 47% of your conversion is going to happen after 6 months. So the more information you have, the more details you have, the rapport building details that you have about their kids and the schools and what they do for work, that's going to be in your follow-up, and that's how you're going to have effective follow-up. But when we're there and we're talking to them on a scale 1 to 10, what would it take to make it a 10? And they tell you this, and that. And that's when and it sucks in a limited inventory environment because it's not around, but you're going to get around this. And it's like, hey, I don't know if this home is still available, but I was showing a property literally just probably about 2 blocks away. And it has the pool that you were looking for. It has that 4th bedroom you were looking for. It has that 3rd car garage you were looking for. I don't know if that home's still available, but if it is, would you be interested in taking a look at that property tomorrow after work, if you met him after work? And it's like, if your entire point is ask for the damn appointment. And I have agents all the time.
Next appointment.
For the next appointment, you want to secure it then and there because I want to get it time blocked onto their calendar. I'm going to send the calendar invite and I'm going to go back to the office and I'm going to scramble trying to find that property. And if I can't find it, I'm going to scramble trying to find a similar one. And then I'm going to go find that similar one. And I'm going to assume that they're going to want to see it. And I'm going to set the appointment. And then I'm going to call them and say, hey, John, you know what? I'm so sorry. That property wasn't available. It did end up going into escrow. However, I set us an appointment to see this one. It's just like it. And it's in the same area. It's the same criteria. It's exactly what you're looking for. Why don't we go ahead and meet there instead? And some people will say yes. Some people will say no. And then at that point, at least you've asked for an appointment 2 times. And the likelihood of you getting and people will get discouraged because it's not going to work every time. But if you can get an extra 2 out of 10 or an extra 3 out of 10 to say yes, holy shit, does that compound into a disproportionate return in comparison to if you weren't using this process? You just got to get the micro adjustments who are going to say yes. And it's like we talked about it before. Go ahead, please.
You said a lot of valuable things there. I think some big takeaways for me were, all right, so second appointment, right? Guys, a lot of times what happens is we go home, we say, all right, buyer, you're going to go home in your car. I'm going to go home in my car. And then what happens is you try to get them back on the phone the next day or the following day. And you say, hey, what did you think of what we saw? When do you want to go back out again? Well, what if you can't get them on the phone? What if they're on, if they're busy at work or they're not answering you or they don't like something that you did? Set the second appointment at the end of the first appointment, right? So like what Colton's saying, hey, we're going to go back out. Today is what, Wednesday? Let's plan to go back out on Friday at 4:00. Would that work for you? That way there's no back and forth of, oh, I'm not available. Or are you available? Friday, 4:00. Does that work for everybody? Great. Friday, 4:00. I'm going to have another 2 or 3 options for you to see. Would that work? Like you said, go back, schedule them, assume that we can make it happen. So that's huge. I think another thing that you said there too, I think you're really, really, really not doing your job if you don't leave each property knowing what their feedback was. If you could get back in your car and you have no idea what that client thought of the property, what are you doing this for? Right? If you're like, oh, I don't know if they like the kitchen. I don't know if they like the backyard. I don't know what they liked or didn't like. Like how can you possibly do your job at a high level without getting feedback? So make sure you're asking scale of 1 to 10 and what would make it a 10.
And then
go ahead.
Sorry. No, please.
One other thing that wasn't directly mentioned is I always get upset with our agents on our team, and I know inventory is limited. If you're going out to show a property, especially if it's one of our listings, you should know what the comparable listings around that property are. Never, like, your odds of winning are so slim if you run out and just go open the door and show 123 Main Street 8 times. If you're going out to show one place, you really should be showing at least 2 or 3 other options in that same trip. It's a good use of time for you, for the buyer. Show them multiple properties because the odds of somebody coming out, seeing one place, writing a contract is so slim.
It's so far. And like, look, there's a standard operating procedure, but it doesn't go as planned. It doesn't go as planned. they talk about something and now that's your opportunity. They talk about this and now that's your opportunity. Like there's so many pain points, interest rates and affordability, you having access to lenders who are smoking everybody else. And it's like right now, buyers are getting back into the mode, thank God. And they're really going to know it in the next 2 to 3 months that right now things are getting more competitive. And it's like, listen, the biggest mistake that I'm seeing clients make is they're not slowing down on the front end. They're waiting to identify the perfect property to take this process seriously. And then I'm having to try to prepare them. I'm trying to get the lender squared away. I'm trying to get the strategy that we're going to use. And it's like the last time I ever want you to put pen to paper is when you've identified a property that you're emotionally attached to. Like the best thing that I can possibly do for you as your agent is slow you down on the front end. And I get it. You don't want to. But to slow you down on the front end and show you exactly what it takes to be a successful buyer in this market. And it's like, has anybody taken the time to sit you down and show you what it takes to be a successful buyer in this market? And every single time they will say no. And it's like a strategy session, by far, buyer consultation, call it whatever it is you want, is by far going to be one of the most magnetizing thing you can do. And yes, there's a lot of people who don't want to sit down because they think you're going to talk about paint colors and kitchens and color schemes and landscape. I'm not going to talk about anything about what you're looking for. We're solely going to be discussing financing to ensure that you're getting the best possible rate with the lowest out-of-pocket expense, with the lender who has the ability to perform in a way that will increase the likelihood of you getting your offer accepted. It's like, and then we're going to talk about offer strategy and how I'm going to maintain the protections of a fully contingencyed offer while giving the seller the illusion that they have a non-contingencyed offer. And it's like, we really need to be able to sit people down and walk them through that strategy, because I promise you, the Vanna Whites aren't doing this. And when you can sit them down, and it takes, like I have agents, well, nobody will ever sit down with me. Hey, this is where we got to look in the mirror, reflect back on our process. How did you articulate it? Did you tell a story in why it's so important? I had a client that I begged to sit down for a strategy session. They didn't listen. They waited to find the perfect property. We finally found it after looking at 22 homes. Finally found the perfect home. The seller needed to be out of that home within the next 2 weeks. They wanted to be closed in 2 weeks. Then my client had to then scramble to go try to find a lender who could close that quickly. But because we didn't have that tool in the tool chest at the time that we needed to use it, my client missed out on the perfect home because they weren't prepared. I'm not doing my job for you unless I ensure that we have all the tools in the tool chest, and you get to pick and choose which ones you're going to use at the right time. But you have to be able to get somebody to tell it. And the more compelling you tell this story, and the better you are at articulating it, and honestly, I'm getting rusty. I'm noticing it as I'm talking to you, is because I'm not doing it anymore. But it's like, you got to be so damn tactical in your approach and how you articulate it, and making sure that the client understands the value and why you are telling them that they need to take this step so you can get them the result that they're looking for. You'll get so many more people to pay attention to it and get yeses and buy-ins when you can get yes to that strategy session.
And again, that what you're saying there is also managing expectations. So that when, if highest and best offers are due in an hour, that's not the first time you're telling them that they may want to consider waiving their appraisal, or they may want to consider doing this and that. Right? Like that should be the second or third time that that's come up, because you said comes up in the buyer consultation strategy session, however you want to call it. But
other agents' clients are playing checkers. My clients are playing chess. Like, I need you to know how to play chess in the negotiation.
It speeds up the process. Otherwise, here's what happens. You take a client out, they love the house. You say it's listed at 500,000. All right, well, based on the comparables and based on what the listing agents told me, you're going to have to offer 525 or 550. Oh, whoa, we want to offer 475. All right, we're going to write up the offer for 475. They lose the house. They lose the next one. By house number 3, they finally have realized how to play the game, right? So what is our job? Our job is to teach them how to speed up the process. Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, based on my experience, can I share with you what happened to another client? We didn't do the strategy session. X, Y, and Z happened. Let's do the strategy session so that I can prepare you, so that we can speed up the process. And you don't have to get lose out on house number 1 and 2.
Yeah. What's everybody's biggest fear when buying and selling? Losing out on something and overpaying. Focus on those 2 pain points. You'll get people to say yes to a strategy session.
Yeah. One thing that you said too that was pretty golden is, and I'm just going to reflect on it again, for somebody to be interested in you, you have to be interested in what they're saying and what's important to them. So Dale Carnegie says people love talking about themselves. So you could use the Ford, F-O-R-D, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. So correlating with what you were talking about before. The other part is that you have to look at what's the issue. Sales is identifying a problem and figuring out a solution for them. So if we're in a low inventory situation, like marketplace, maybe know the inventory in the area. Maybe if you're holding an open house, for example, and someone comes in and you say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think? Is this the house? And they're like, no. You ask them, well, what would make it a 10? And they say, oh, well, we would like more of like outdoor space, whatever the case it is. Maybe you should look at the inventory, see what does have outdoor space, try to book an appointment to leave right after. So you're providing an immediate remedy to the inventory shortage in their mind. And now that you're listening to their concerns, they'll listen to your information as valuable versus just being typical things that are being shoved down their throat. And I'm coining this term after you, Colton. I'm going to get you a shirt called Feeding KPIs, Not Egos. I think that's golden. If anybody takes that, I will sue you. Being said here first. May 17th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Feeding KPIs, Not Egos. Pretty dope.
Like it.
Sweet.
All right.
I don't think we have time for questions, y'all, but this is pretty sweet. Colton, if someone wants to reach out, collaborate, what's the best way to do so?
Instagram, Colton Whitney. Very, very hard to find.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. As always, it's a pleasure collaborating with you, working with you. I think people will certainly find this highly valuable.
Likewise, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate you as always.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. See you later.
Later.